Let's be real about this. It's insane that we haven't raised the retirement age in the United States. No one in the United States should be retiring at 65 years old. Frankly, I think retirement itself is a stupid idea unless you have some sort of health problem. Everybody that I know who is elderly, who has retired, is dead within 5 years. And if you talk to people who are elderly and they lose their purpose in life by losing their job and they stop working, things go to hell in a handbasket real quick. The notion that if you have to raise the retirement age to 67 or 68, that everyone is going to fall apart. My parents are that age. My parents are not retired. And they shouldn't retire. It would be very bad for them to retire.
On Tuesday, Ben Shapiro put out the video that you just watched, basically not only trashing Social Security, but also the whole notion of ever retiring. And it earned a lot of, in my opinion, well-deserved criticism. But yesterday, he apparently doubled down. He felt the need to respond to the critics because there were many of them. And Shapiro's stance can be summed up in 3 main points. Number one, Social Security is not only fiscally irresponsible, according to him, but governments shouldn't be allowed to redistribute your money in the first place. Let's watch.
Both parties now argue that we can't touch Social Security, we can't touch Medicare, we can't touch Medicaid. The entitlement programs basically have to stay. The problem with that is that, of course, they're all going to go bankrupt. But I'm not running for office, so I can tell you the truth, which is that if we don't raise the retirement age or privatize Social Security over time or make any changes to Social Security, we will go insolvent. You're either getting out way less, in my case, you're getting way less in Social Security if ever you receive it, than you paid in. And in many cases, you're receiving far more. Many of the people that we are paying not to work right now, who are 65 years old, yes, they paid into the system, but that is because the system should not have taken their money in the first place. You should not have your money taken away from you by the federal government and then spent somewhere else. And then later, somebody else has to fill you in. You should be able to keep your own money. That's how you plan for retirement.
A lot of mainstream media don't give you honest news. We do. You know why? Because of you. Paid membership on YouTube makes all the difference. Hit the join button below and you become the hero that sustains us.
Cenk, I feel like that argument that the government should not be able to take part of your money, your pay, and then redistribute that money toward whatever is kind of a weak argument. Like, you need central planning to some extent, and that central planning needs to be funded. Yeah. Otherwise, you'd have absolute chaos. So the argument he's making is much broader than just Social Security.
Yeah.
And it's, in my opinion, insane.
So I can prove this case instantly. So let's get this right. Ben Shapiro thinks we should collect all of our money and give 4 billion of it every single year to Israel. And now he says we should give them another $14 billion. That's not robbery.
That's not redistributing
That's not redistributing wealth.
Right.
Even though it takes American money, gives it to a foreign government.
Correct.
To do, let alone the fact that now they're doing massacres with it and war crimes, etc. But that is not robbery. In fact, if you say that's robbery, it's anti-Semitic. But when the government takes our money and gives it to us, that's a robbery. Come on, guys. So look, the thing is, I watched his segment, I watched Matt Walsh's segment. And if you're a person who's not knee deep in politics and you don't know, these guys can easily trick you because they say things as if they're populist. They're constantly talking about how the government's ripping you off and the robbery, etc. But they are misdirecting you in a horrible way. So let me explain.
But hold on, before you do, the government do be ripping us off.
Yes.
Don't make a mistake about that.
Yes.
But Social Security and Medicare are like the few examples of us getting taxed, and that money that we get like taken from our checks actually ends up helping us, okay? Like, my problem with the federal government, and honestly the way California taxes with their state taxes, is that a lot of the money does get wasted on nonsense. Right? There's a lot of pay to play going on. And so government grants get doled out to all sorts of corporations, or in the case of California, nonprofits who squander our money. But in the case of Social Security and Medicare, we're talking about government programs that actually go back to benefiting us in a very specific way.
So the biggest waste in the American government is the Pentagon. So they cannot pass an audit, and they consistently say they have no idea where $400 billion went. They can't track it. But Ben Shapiro thinks that's totally fine. Matt Walsh thinks totally fine. So like, when you sense the government's ripping you off, goddamn right they are. They're giving our money to their donors, whether they're Raytheon or Lockheed Martin or ExxonMobil or Pfizer or Israel or Qatar or Saudi Arabia, etc. They take our money and redistribute it. And we hate that. And a lot of right-wingers hate that, right? So they're taking that righteous populist anger and misdirecting it. Now let me explain how they're misdirecting it. When is the government doing something that is right? Because most people are not anarchists, they don't believe in chaos. For example, you need cops, you need fire department, you need military, you need schools, etc. right? So when the government is protecting us, oh right, that makes sense. And so one of the things that protects us, for example, is insurance. That's why we have public fire insurance. When we used to have private fire insurance, it was a disaster because your house would burn down and then the whole block would burn down, right? So in an insurance system, we all pay in, whether it's the government or private, we all pay in and take out when we need it. So the equivalent of this argument for Shapiro and Walsh is, oh, the insurance is robbing you, man. They keep taking your money and then you don't need it at all. And then later they give it to some guy who's got cancer. What a robbery. No, that's how insurance works. We put in the money now and we take it out when we need it. The same exact thing with Social Security insurance.
Right.
We all put it in now and we take it out later when we retire. And they want to trick you into believing that that's a Ponzi scheme. The government has so many Ponzi schemes. That's not one of them. That's the one thing that works. Why do you think it's so popular? And Ben Shapiro's having to do all these videos because he got attacked by the right wing. Not the leaders are all corrupt, but the actual viewers, they're like, what do you mean? This is the one government program that works. I put it in, I got it out, and it saved my life. Are you insane, right? Because guys, as he explains in his rant, what he wants to do is privatize it so that the big bankers can make commission on your savings.
And charge you fees.
And charge you massive fees. I would be surprised if they weren't among his advertisers and his funders, okay? So it's a giant trick to actually rob you of your money.
So this next argument he makes, look, he also says, one of his arguments is, listen, you need to work for purpose. People lose their purpose when they stop working. Let ordinary people worry about finding purpose on their own. They don't need Ben Shapiro to dictate purpose for them. But let's skip ahead to the third argument that he makes, which is that Social Security, in his view, is de-incentivizing multi-generational households. Let's watch.
Actually, is an ironic byproduct of Social Security, family has been declining because it used to be before Social Security. What happened to grandma when it was time for grandma to retire or grandpa? They lived with you. Grandma and grandpa lived in the house with you and you helped your parents out. That's what it was about. And that created intergenerational contact and point of contact. And that was fulfilling for grandma and grandpa and it was fulfilling for kids and grandkids because then you got the wisdom of grandma and grandpa. That's been completely destroyed by Social Security. Now the American vision is you hit 65 or you hit 70, whatever it is, you retire, and then we shuffle you off to the villages or some old age home or something. And listen, if you want to be there, that's fine. I mean, it's a free country. But the idea that this is like the ideal form of what 80-year-old life looks like is you don't see your kids, you don't see your grandkids, and you live in a home by yourself.
It is shocking to me that he thought that was a good and persuasive argument. So basically he is saying, look, because there's a social safety net for elderly people called Social Security, people no longer felt the need to take on the financial burden of financially supporting their elderly parents. They no longer needed to do that because of Social Security. And so that's family in decline. How many Americans do you think are going to support the argument that we should scrap Social Security so people have no choice but to take in their parents who have nothing left for retirement? And basically take care of them financially. How is that a good argument?
Yeah, it's actually even worse than that in my opinion because it's so disingenuous. Guys, right now, your grandparents can live with you all they want because they have freedom, the freedom that Social Security provided for them. Maybe they want to live by themselves because they find you annoying. I don't know, okay? I'm kidding around, but seriously guys, there's nothing stopping you inviting your grandparents to live with you now or your grandparents deciding to live with you. Because they have the luxury of being able to do that because of Social Security and Medicare.
They get to decide.
Right, but in Ben's version of reality, they would no longer have that option because they'd be starving. Because they'd have no money to support them at all. So they would have to move in with you, whether they wanted it or you wanted it or not, because their only other option is the street. Is that the idea of freedom that the right wing wants? No, that's servitude. That's pain and suffering so that, yes, the rich can be even richer. Because the whole point of this Social Security, to get rid of it, is because they want to save money on taxes or they want to privatize it so they can make money off of it and take greater risk.
So what happens to couples who have divorced? Like, what do the kids do in that situation?
Do they bring in all the grandparents?
What if they don't have kids?
What if they were divorced and remarried 3 different times? Are they going to be 6 sets of grandparents?
Interesting, yeah.
Okay, well, more intergenerational points of contact, as Ben would say, okay? No, this is a robbery, but not in the way that he describes. He's actually trying to rob you of your Social Security money. One more thing about that. Guys, they're making it seem like, oh, the money's not there anymore. No, the full faith and credit of the United States government is behind that money. And there is an agency that tracks that. It's called credit agencies. So if it was true that the US government is not going to pay you, our credit rating would be totally destroyed, okay? So the fact that we have a pretty excellent credit rating compared to other governments shows that yes, we will pay the Chinese if they have treasury bonds. Yes, we'll pay our debts, and yes, we will pay Social Security and Medicare. They're pretending that you're not going to get it anyway, so they could take it for the rich in the form of tax cuts, etc.
Yeah, and look, Matt Walsh backed him up in wanting to, do away with Social Security. We're not going to have time to play his videos, but it's nice that Ben Shapiro has a buddy who's gonna back him up as he's making some of the worst arguments I have heard him make ever. Okay, arguments that are in no way persuasive to the vast majority of Americans, overwhelming majority of Americans who support Social Security. Let's go to graphic 3 here, just as a reminder of the numbers. So a vast majority of Americans, 78%, would oppose raising the full retirement age for Social Security from 67 to 70, while 17% would support it. When Americans were asked whether they would support raising the full retirement age for Social Security from 67 to 70 if it meant that benefits would last longer, Americans would still oppose it 62 to 30%.
Yeah, and so last 2 things for me on this is both Walsh and Shapiro were like, oh, we're not politicians, so we're brave enough to say this. And the politicians don't dare say it. But wait, why don't the politicians dare say it? Because it's intensely popular. Anna just read you the numbers. The overwhelming majority of this country loves Social Security and Medicare. That's why the politicians who desperately want to cut Social Security and Medicare, because their donors want them to cut it, can't, because that's the one thing that'll get them fired, right? Whether they're left wing or right wing, you cut that program and you're gonna get fired. And so, but they twist it on its head and go, can you believe how popular it is? That's why we should cut it. What? Okay, that doesn't make any sense at all. And finally, when they tell you that they won't be around, they're totally lying on purpose. If what you did was lift the cap on Social Security taxes from 168,000, beyond people making above 168,000, once they get above that number, they don't pay any Social Security tax. If you lift that cap on the rich, Social Security would be solvent forever. Did they tell you that? They didn't, because they don't want you to get Social Security. They want that money. All right, in the bonus episode, we have amazing stories for you guys. Members get it first. tyt.com/join or hit the join button below. We'll see you there in a minute.